Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I come before you today with a message that is both powerful and profound, the Father of mercy. You see, we live in a world where mercy is often misunderstood or overlooked. Mercy is not simply a word we say when we want to excuse someone's mistake or wrongdoing. No, mercy is a divine force, a divine attribute that flows from the heart of God Himself. And today we're going to dive into the depths of that mercy to understand the Father who embodies it and the power it has to transform our lives. Mercy, by its very nature, is not a concept that we often come across in our everyday lives in its purest form. We tend to equate it with kindness or forgiveness. But mercy, true mercy, goes deeper than those actions. Mercy is the essence of giving what is not deserved. It is the act of showing compassion and grace to someone who has failed, fallen short, or made mistakes. It is a divine act that reaches beyond the surface of a person's actions into the very core of their being. It does not say, "You deserve this because you earned it." Instead, it says, "You are worthy of love," not because of your behavior, but because of the heart of the one offering mercy. In our human relationships, we often tie mercy to a sense of faith. We expect others to earn our forgiveness, earn our kindness, or earn our respect. But God's mercy isn't like that. His mercy doesn't operate on the principle of fairness, but on the principle of love and grace. It's the same kind of love that extended to us, not when we were perfect, but when we were at our lowest, in our brokenness and in our sin. In those moments when we were undeserving, He still chose to show mercy. Mercy doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't measure out how much someone deserves it based on what they've done or who they are. It reaches out in grace, even when it seems illogical. The very nature of mercy is that it transcends our limitations and says, even in your imperfection, I will choose to forgive, to love, and to restore. It's important to understand that mercy and justice are not enemies. They work together. Justice demands that wrongs be righted, that there are consequences for actions. But mercy comes in and says, though the price is high, I will pay it for you. It steps in when judgment would seem fitting and offers grace instead. This is why mercy is so powerful. It changes the course of life, offering redemption instead of destruction, grace instead of condemnation. So when we talk about mercy, we're not just talking about the forgiveness of a sin or the overlooking of an offense. We are talking about a force that transforms. Mercy doesn't just cover the sin, it invites the sinner to a new way of living. It calls them into a place of healing and restoration. And it is not just a gift from God, it's a gift that flows through us. When we receive mercy, it empowers us to extend that same mercy to others, even when it feels impossible. And in that, mercy becomes not only a divine act, but a divine calling. When we speak of God as the ultimate source of mercy, we are recognizing that His mercy is not just something He offers. It is the very essence of who He is. God is not merciful because He chooses to be. He is merciful because it is woven into the fabric of His being. He cannot act apart from mercy because mercy is an intrinsic part of His divine nature. His mercy flows from His heart, and it is as eternal and unchanging as He is. Consider this: God's mercy doesn't have limits. Unlike human mercy, which is often conditional or fleeting, God's mercy is steadfast and abundant. He is not like us. He does not grow weary of showing mercy. His mercy is not rationed out in small doses based on our behavior or our worthiness. It is limitless, constant, and available at every moment. Whether we are in our lowest point or walking in His grace, God's mercy is never withheld. God's mercy is not only available in our times of need, but it's always present, even in moments we may not recognize it. When we go through life, there are times we fall short, times when we are lost in our own mistakes, and yet even in those dark times, His mercy is right there beside us. We may not see it at first. We may feel the sting of our failures, but mercy is working quietly but powerfully behind the scenes. In moments of doubt, His mercy is there reminding us that we are not defined by our mistakes, but by His grace. Even when we feel distant or disconnected from Him, His mercy is still pulling us back, whispering that we are never too far gone for His love to reach us. Furthermore, God's mercy is active. It doesn't just sit idle, waiting for us to come to Him. It pursues us. It calls out to us, even when we don't call out to Him. Just think about the story of the prodigal son. The son chose to leave, to squander his inheritance, and to live a life that led him far away from his father's house. Yet when he decided to return, his father didn't wait for him to approach. He ran to him. That's the kind of mercy God extends to us. When we stray, He runs to us. When we fall, He lifts us up. His mercy is relentless, it's persistent, and it's always working to restore us back to Himself. The fact that God is the ultimate source of mercy means that He alone has the power to forgive and restore in a way that no one else can. He does not see us for our failures or our shortcomings. He sees us through the lens of His mercy. His mercy allows us to experience forgiveness and healing in a way that transcends anything we can experience on earth. No human being, no system, no institution can offer the kind of mercy that God can. His mercy brings freedom from shame and guilt, and it offers us a future that is far greater than anything our past mistakes could ever dictate. To know that God is the ultimate source of mercy means that we can rely on Him completely. His mercy isn't something that we earn or work for. It's a gift that flows freely from His heart. In times of failure, we don't have to wonder if He'll show mercy. We know that He will. In times of pain and regret, we don't have to question if His mercy will be enough to restore us. We can trust that it will. And it's because God is the source of this mercy that we can confidently approach His throne, knowing that we will find not condemnation, but grace and help in our time of need. Mercy and forgiveness are intricately tied together. One cannot exist without the other. To show mercy is to offer forgiveness, and true forgiveness is the highest. When God extends mercy to us, He is offering us more than a pardon. He is releasing us from the weight of our guilt, the chains of our past, and the shame that keeps us bound. Forgiveness is the vehicle through which mercy flows. It is the way God demonstrates His compassion for us. Without forgiveness, mercy remains an abstract concept. But when forgiveness is applied, mercy becomes something that transforms lives. Forgiveness is not always easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things we can do. It requires us to release our grip on hurt, pain, and anger, emotions that can feel so justified when we've been wronged. But when we forgive, we choose to let go of the control that resentment has over us. Mercy, in its truest form, calls us to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because we have been forgiven. We are asked to extend the same grace that was extended to us. And when we do, we are freed from the bondage of unforgiveness. It is as if a weight has been lifted, not just from the one who is forgiven, but from ourselves as well. Forgiveness, as an act of mercy, offers the opportunity for healing. not just for the one who has been wronged, but for the one who wronged. When we choose mercy and forgiveness, we break the cycle of sin and hurt that keeps people trapped. We offer them a chance to experience the same grace that God has shown us. It is through forgiveness that we give the other person a fresh start, a new beginning. This act doesn't erase the hurt or the consequences of the wrongdoing, but it restores the relationship. It transforms the dynamic from one of judgment and separation to one of grace and reconciliation. God's forgiveness made possible through His mercy is not a single act, but a continual, repeated offer. It's a forgiveness that is there every time we fall short, every time we make mistakes. His mercy does not say, "You've used up your chances, but come to me and I will forgive you again and again and again." Just as the father in the parable of the prodigal son forgives his son repeatedly, God is ready and willing to forgive us no matter how many times we fall. That's the beauty of mercy. It doesn't keep score. It is not limited by the number of mistakes we make. God's mercy is expansive and His forgiveness is limitless. True forgiveness also brings about a radical transformation in us. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the bitterness and anger that imprison our hearts. Holding on to unforgiveness is like carrying a heavy burden, one that weighs us down, affects our relationships, and keeps us from fully experiencing the freedom that God has for us. But when we forgive, we open ourselves to healing. We allow God's mercy to wash over us in such a way that we become more like Him, merciful, compassionate, and full of grace. Forgiveness through mercy not only restores our relationships with others, but also with God. The Bible reminds us that when we forgive others, we position ourselves to receive forgiveness from our Heavenly Father. It's a reciprocal action. When we show mercy, we invite God's mercy into our lives. But this act of forgiveness isn't just about what happens between us and another person. It is also an act of worship. Forgiveness reflects the heart of God. It declares that we are choosing to follow His example, to live out the mercy He has shown to us. And in doing so, we reflect the love of God in a world that desperately needs to experience it. So when we speak of forgiveness as an expression of mercy, we're talking about something that can heal broken hearts, restore relationships, and transform lives. Mercy isn't just a feeling or a concept. It's a powerful force that brings about change, not only in the one receiving it, but also in the one giving it. Mercy makes forgiveness possible, and forgiveness makes restoration and healing a reality. It's a divine exchange that brings the broken back together and invites us into the fullness of God's love. Through forgiveness, mercy is made real and the cycle of grace continues. God's mercy is not just about offering us forgiveness and grace. It is an invitation to something far greater. It is an invitation to transformation. Mercy, when experienced in its fullness, does not just patch up the brokenness in our lives temporarily. It calls us to a new way of living. It beckons us to rise from our mistakes, from our failures, and from our past into a life that is restored, renewed, and filled with purpose. Mercy doesn't just meet us where we are. It lifts us up. It lifts us beyond what we've been through and what we've done. When God shows mercy, He isn't just excusing our wrongdoings. He's offering us an opportunity to change, to grow, to become who He always intended us to be. He sees our potential, not just our failures. He sees the person we can be, not just the person we've been. Mercy invites us into a life of transformation where the mistakes of our past do not define us, but the grace of our present propels us forward. The forgiveness he offers is not simply to remove guilt. It is to free us to walk in a new identity, to live with purpose and clarity, and to experience his joy and peace in a way that we never thought possible. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that God's mercy is only a way of escaping punishment or hardship, but it is so much more than that. It's a doorway to a deeper relationship with him. Every time God shows mercy, he opens the door for us to experience him in new and more intimate ways. Mercy draws us closer to his heart. It's like a second chance to experience life with him, to walk in the fullness of his will and purpose for us. Mercy says, come as you are, but don't stay where you are. It calls us to a higher place, to a life that reflects God's glory and goodness. This invitation to transformation through mercy isn't just about what happens after we receive forgiveness. It's about how we live differently because of it. Mercy changes our hearts, our minds, and our perspectives. It teaches us to see others through the same lens of grace that God sees us. When we experience mercy, we cannot remain unchanged. It calls us to extend the same mercy to others, to offer forgiveness and compassion even when it's not easy. Mercy transforms us into people who reflect God's heart in every word, every action, and every interaction. It compels us to forgive, to love, and to serve, even in the face of hurt or betrayal. Moreover, mercy empowers us to move forward. It allows us to release our shame, our guilt, and our regret, and it gives us the strength to pursue the life God has called us to live. When we accept God's mercy, we are no longer bound by the mistakes of our past. We are no longer defined by the things we've done, but by the grace that has set us free. We are given the power to move forward with renewed strength and determination, knowing that his mercy covers us and propels us into the future he has prepared for us. Mercy also gives us hope. It reminds us that no matter how far we may have fallen, no matter how many times we have failed, there is always a way back. There is always an opportunity to change, to grow, and to become the person God intended us to be. This is the invitation of mercy. It says, no matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, I'm offering you a way out. I'm offering you a way up. I'm offering you a future. In the light of God's mercy, we see ourselves not as failures, but as works in progress. Mercy doesn't leave us stuck in our brokenness. It offers a way forward. It removes the barriers of condemnation and judgment that can keep us paralyzed, and it fills us with the courage to step out in faith. Mercy transforms us from being merely survivors of our circumstances into overcomers, people who can look at life with fresh eyes, knowing that the mercy of God has made all things possible. Through mercy, we are invited to live a life of freedom, not bound by the past or defined by our mistakes, but free to embrace the future with confidence, hope, and the love of God in our hearts. Mercy takes us from where we are to where we were always meant to be. It opens the door to a life that is abundant, full of grace, peace, and joy, and it invites us to step into the transformation that only the Father of mercy can bring. When we speak about mercy being an invitation, we are recognizing something incredibly powerful. God's mercy does not just stop at offering us forgiveness. It opens the door to something far beyond our understanding. Mercy is not a one-time act. It is a continual call to something greater, something more. Every time we experience God's mercy, we are being invited into a deeper relationship with Him, a more intimate walk with Him, and a life that is not bound by our past mistakes, but is propelled by His grace toward a new and greater future. This invitation to transformation through mercy is not a passive one. It's not just God saying, I forgive you, and then leaving us to figure things out on our own. No, it's an active, ongoing invitation to walk with Him. God's mercy says, come not just as you are, but come and be transformed by the love and grace I'm offering. Come and be changed by my presence. The very act of extending mercy to us invites us to enter into a journey, one where we are continually being shaped, molded, and remade by God's love. This invitation to transformation is not always easy. It requires us to surrender our old ways of thinking, our old ways of living, and our old identities. Mercy calls us to give up the control we think we have over our lives and instead trust God with our entire being. It challenges us to move beyond our comfort zones, to let go of the fears that have held us back, and to embrace the new identity that God has for us. But that's the beauty of mercy. It meets us right where we are, in the middle of our struggles, in the midst of our imperfections, and it still invites us to take the first step towards something better. One of the most profound aspects of mercy as an invitation is that it's extended without conditions. It doesn't matter what we've done, where we've been, or how many times we've failed. The door to transformation is always open. God is not waiting for us to get it all right before He invites us in. He knows that we will stumble along the way, but His mercy still calls us forward. Every time we fall, mercy says, get back up, keep going. The invitation to transformation is still open to you. This invitation is not just about the promise of a future transformation. It's about the power of mercy to change us in the present moment. When we accept God's mercy, we open ourselves to being changed right here, right now. Mercy begins to work in us immediately. It begins to soften our hearts, to heal our wounds, and to realign our priorities with God's will. The more we respond to His mercy, the more we begin to reflect His character, His love, and His grace in everything we do. And this invitation doesn't just change us individually, it changes the way we interact with the world around us. When we experience mercy, we are compelled to extend that same mercy to others. It's no longer about just receiving grace and forgiveness. It becomes about sharing that grace and forgiveness with the people in our lives. Mercy calls us to be agents of change, not just in our own lives, but in the lives. As we accept God's invitation to transformation, we become a living testimony to the power of mercy, showing others that they too are invited to experience the same life-changing grace. God's mercy isn't just a means to an end, it is the process itself. It's the ongoing work of God in our lives, continually calling us to a higher place, continually inviting us to deeper intimacy with Him, and continually transforming us into the image of Christ. This invitation isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's not about getting everything right, it's about allowing God to make us better. It's about walking with Him every day, receiving His mercy and allowing it to change us little by little, day by day. Mercy is not just something we receive, it's a living, breathing invitation that we must actively engage with. It requires us to say yes each and every time God calls us forward. Each step we take in response to His mercy leads us into a deeper understanding of His love and a greater manifestation of His kingdom in our lives. It's a call to not just accept forgiveness, but to embrace the transformation that comes with it, to allow God to take us from where we are to where we were always meant to be. This is the beauty of mercy as an invitation. It's an open door to life, true life, abundant life, a life filled with God's presence and purpose. It is an invitation that never expires. It's always there, always open, always calling us to come, to receive, and to be transformed. The invitation is extended to all. No matter our past, no matter our mistakes, it says, come as you are, but don't stay where you are. God's mercy is not just a pardon, it is a transformative invitation to live the life He designed for us. When we speak of the mercy of God, it's important to understand that mercy is not just a divine gift to be received. It's a divine calling that demands a response. To receive God's mercy is to be invited into a life that reflects His character, His love, and His grace. Mercy isn't just a momentary experience, it's an ongoing process of transformation that equips us to reflect God's heart and extend mercy to others. In this way, mercy becomes more than just a gift we experience. It becomes a responsibility, a command, and a way of life. The calling to extend mercy to others is one of the clearest reflections of God's nature in our lives. When we truly experience the mercy of God, we cannot help but share that mercy with those around us. It's not enough to simply bask in God's grace and forgiveness. We are called to extend that same grace and forgiveness to others, especially when they don't deserve it. Just as God has shown us boundless mercy, we are tasked with doing the same for others, even when it feels difficult or uncomfortable. In fact, it's often in those difficult moments when we've been wronged or hurt that mercy is most powerfully demonstrated. God calls us to forgive, to show kindness, to extend grace, even when it goes against our natural instincts. But extending mercy is not just about forgiveness. It's about meeting people in their brokenness, their pain, and their struggles, and offering them the same compassion and understanding that God has shown to us. It's about seeing others through God's eyes, understanding that they too are in need of the mercy that we've received. It's about choosing not to judge or condemn, but to offer grace and understanding. In doing so, we become conduits of God's mercy, spreading His love to a hurting world. This is the heartbeat of the gospel, to receive God's mercy and then to extend that mercy to others so that His love is made real in the lives of those around us. This calling to extend mercy is not just for those who are easy to love or easy to forgive. It's for everyone. It's for those who've wronged us, those who have hurt us, those who have betrayed us. It's for those who are difficult to love, those who are far from God, and those who don't even know they need mercy. This is what sets God's mercy apart from anything the world offers. The world tells us that we should only show mercy to those who deserve it or those who treat us well. But God's mercy knows no bounds. It is unconditional. And as His followers, we are called to live the same way, to show mercy to everyone, regardless of their actions or their worthiness. The beauty of this calling is that when we extend mercy to others, we are not only being obedient to God's commands, but we are also allowing ourselves to experience the fullness of God's love. There is a joy that comes from offering mercy to others, an internal peace that surpasses understanding. Mercy doesn't just change the recipient, it changes the giver. It breaks down the walls of bitterness and resentment, and it frees us from the chains of unforgiveness. When we choose to forgive, to extend grace, to offer mercy, we experience the same freedom that comes from receiving it. It's a cycle of grace that flows both ways. into us and then through us to others. As we live out this calling to show mercy, we also reflect the nature of God to the world. The world desperately needs mercy. It is filled with broken people, hurting hearts, and fractured relationships. But when we live out the mercy of God, we become a living testimony to the power of His love. Our actions speak louder than words. When we show mercy, we are showing the world a glimpse of God's heart, a heart that is filled with compassion, forgiveness, and grace. We become His hands and feet, offering the mercy that He has so freely given us to a world in desperate need of healing. Mercy as a calling means that we are never done. We don't just show mercy once and then move on. We are continually called to offer it day by day in every situation to everyone we encounter. It is not a task we can complete and check off our list. It is a lifestyle, a reflection of God's heart that is lived out every day. And as we continually choose to extend mercy, we find that it shapes us, molds us, and transforms us into the image of the one who has shown us the greatest mercy of all. So as we embrace God's mercy in our lives, we must also embrace the responsibility to extend that mercy to others. It's not enough to simply receive His grace and forgiveness. We must live it out, reflecting His heart in all that we do. By doing so, we not only honor God's mercy, but we also become instruments of healing and restoration in the lives of those around us. This is the call of mercy: to receive it, to live it, and to give it freely to others so that the world might know the love of God through our actions. In conclusion, the mercy of God is far more than a simple act of forgiveness. It is the very essence of His nature and the invitation to a transformed life. From the depths of His heart, God extends mercy to us, not because we deserve it, but because He loves us with an unchanging, boundless love. His mercy meets us where we are, in the middle of our failures and mistakes, and lifts us to a higher place. It restores, heals, and transforms, and it calls us to do the same for others. As we experience God's mercy, we are not meant to keep it to ourselves. We are called to reflect that mercy in every part of our lives through forgiveness, compassion, and grace. We are invited to step into a life that is continually being transformed by His love, a life that is defined not by our past, but by His boundless grace. And with that grace, we are commissioned to show mercy to those around us, to break the cycles of judgment, anger, and bitterness, and to be agents of healing and reconciliation in a hurting world. God's mercy is a continual call to action, a call to live differently, to love differently, to forgive without limits, and to offer grace freely. It is an invitation that is open to all, no matter where we've been or what we've done. And it is a calling that transforms us from the inside out. As we accept God's mercy and extend it to others, we become living testimonies of His love, demonstrating to the world the power of mercy to heal, to restore, and to bring new life. May we embrace the mercy of God not just as a gift to receive, but as a way to live. Let us walk in His mercy, reflect His mercy, and share His mercy so that the world may know the Father of mercy and experience the transformative power of His love.